Hey everyone! ChatGP Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today will be a continuation of the Disventure Camp Top 5 series. This series counts down my top 5 lists of certain topics related to Disventure Camp. Last time, I talked about 5 steps that Jake would need to follow in order for a majority of the community to be satisfied with him winning Disventure Camp All-Stars. This video will look at something different. If there are any ideas for this series that you would like to see me play out, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Today's topic is something that I thought about after looking through the elimination ceremonies. The topic is 5 moves in Disventure Camp that weren't ideal. Part of the reason why I enjoy watching Disventure Camp is because of the strategy incorporated into the show. Generally, the moves made in the show are made with logic and are sensible for gameplay, such as when Ashley was taken out in episode 10 of Disventure Camp All-Stars for being the glue that held the heroes' alliance together. However, there are some moves that leave me a little bit puzzled as to whether or not it was the ideal move to make given the circumstances at that time. And even if a camper made a move and eventually advanced to the finale, that doesn't mean that the move they made was inherently good. The camper could have gotten lucky that the move they made didn't massively mess up their game. Therefore, this video will have me go over the top 5 moves from seasons 1 and 2 of Disventure Camp that I think weren't ideal for the person that made them, even if that camper ended up finding success in the game. Before I begin, there are 2 things that I want to clarify. Firstly, I'm only including moves from the first 2 seasons of Disventure Camp because I eventually plan on making a part 2 to this video where I solely focus on moves made in season 3. And secondly, I'm only counting moves where the camper making the decision could have reasonably chosen a better alternative to the decision they made, given the amount of time they had to make the choice and the lack of pressure they were under. So for example, even though Tom definitely made the wrong move by saving Jake in episode 10 of season 1, considering how a lot of the drama took place at the elimination ceremony, Tom was being yelled at by multiple people, and Trevor was pressuring Tom to make a decision by repeatedly asking if he could read the votes. I'm not going to include it in this list since Tom was under a lot of pressure and had very little time to think about it. And with that, let's get started. The first move that I'm including on this list is Rhea allowing Rosa Maria to get voted out back in episode 10 of season 2. As a quick refresher, Rhea framed Rosa for stealing James's phone and her perfume bottle, and then stole Rosa's immunity totem, causing Rosa's 5th place elimination. The reason why I feel like this wasn't an ideal move for Rhea is because it was an unnecessary risk to take. By voting out Rosa, Rhea is putting all of her faith in the immunity totem that she stole, hoping she could use it to take out her target. Now, you might say that it's good that Rhea stole the totem, since it guarantees her safety. However, if Rhea was able to steal Rosa's immunity totem with no consequences, then there's nothing stopping James or Hunter from stealing the totem as well. All it takes is one of them to think about who stole Rosa's immunity totem, realize that Rhea stole it, steal it from her when she's not paying attention, and then get the other boys to vote Rhea out by a vote of 3-1. Of course, I get that this happened for the sake of the story, but again, I'm not looking at these moves from a story standpoint. I'm looking at them from a logical standpoint. And logically, Rhea took an unnecessary risk by voting out someone who probably would have stayed loyal to her had she stayed. But in the long run, does this matter? If Rhea lets Rosa save herself with her totem and eliminates James instead, does Rhea end up winning the season? Well, I already made a video about this topic, and if you haven't watched that video yet, please go and check it out. But if you already watched that video, then you know that in that scenario, Rosa goes on to win instead of James. However, that video assumes that Rhea still picks Connor as her helper. What if Rhea picks Carol instead, like Rhea said she should have done back in the premiere of season 3? Is she guaranteed a win? No, but there's a chance. With Carol as her helper and likely endorsing Rhea's villainy, I think she would stand by Rhea as she scuba dives, unlike Connor. Therefore, Rhea would have Carol's help in navigating the caves, potentially allowing her to maintain her lead in the challenge, allowing her to possibly win the season. Therefore, allowing Rosa to get voted out possibly ruined Rhea's best chance at winning the season. Looking back at this move, it was an intense moment and I was entertained by it to a certain degree. However, since the purpose of this video is to look at these moments from an idealistic game scenario, Rhea letting Rosa get eliminated was not ideal because her entire game now hinges on someone not stealing her immunity totem, and it eliminates the possibility of her actually winning season 2. That's one move that I feel like was made for the sake of the story, rather than it being an ideal move to help Rhea win. And I could say similar things about the next move on this list. The next move that I think wasn't ideal for the camper that made it was James exposing Carol and Aiden in episode 2 of season 2. As a refresher, the orange team lost the challenge in this episode, and the team was down to 6 members. Rosa, Lake, and Maggie had a friendship alliance and were likely voting together, leaving Carol, Aiden, and James on the outside. Carol and Aiden agreed that they needed to team up and vote out one member of the friendship alliance, prompting Aiden to tell James about the plan. However, James chose to tell the friendship alliance that Carol and Aiden were planning on voting them out, causing Carol to get voted out by a vote of 4-1. The reason why I feel like this wasn't an ideal move for James is because it worsened his position in the game. With Carol out, now the friendship alliance has 3 of the 5 votes on their team, which is a majority. This additionally turned Aiden against James, which further worsened his position. In this situation, the alternative and probably ideal move would be for James to join Aiden and Carol, force a 3-3 tie against the other alliance, and hope that whoever the other alliance votes for can win the tiebreaker. Does this guarantee James's safety in the game? No, not at all. Him or his allies could still end up losing the tiebreaker and forcing him into the minority anyways. But in my opinion, taking the chance to end up in the majority is better than guaranteeing yourself a spot in the minority, so I wouldn't say that James's move was ideal. Now, some might say that this move was ideal because James ended up winning the season. But I honestly think that James got really lucky that this move didn't hurt his game. Had the orange team lost the episode 3 challenge, James almost certainly gets voted out by a vote of 4-1. If Yul doesn't get swapped to the orange team in episode 4, then James almost certainly gets voted out 4-1 by the others on his team. And if Yul loses the tiebreaker against Maggie in episode 4, then James probably gets voted out 3-1 in the following episode. So overall, I do think that James's survival is not because of his decision to throw Carol and Aiden under the bus. It's more due to the fortunate set of circumstances that followed this move. While this move did bring some drama to the second episode of Season 2 and set up the drama for episode 9 later that season, it doesn't change my opinion that this move wasn't ideal for James. For someone that's commonly pinned as a manipulator and a strategist, I didn't expect James to pull this move when I first watched the season. I do like it when the key strategists in a season make big moves, as long as it's smart. And for the next move on this list, you could argue that it wasn't completely smart. The third move on this list might surprise a few people, but it's Ellie orchestrating Lil and Ashley's eliminations in episode 5 of season 1. As a refresher, the purple team lost the episode 5 challenge, meaning that they would have to vote out one person on their team, while Gabby from the other team would vote out a second person. Lil and Ashley took this opportunity to expose Fiore for her manipulation, while Fiore and Alec stood their ground and defended the moves. This left Ellie as the swing vote. And using her connection with Gabby, Ellie used the subsequent elimination ceremony to eliminate both Lil and Ashley. The reason why I don't think this was an ideal move is because of the lack of flexibility associated with the decision. By completely committing to one side, Ellie ran the risk of potentially getting teamed up on by the 2 campers that she saves if her team were to lose another challenge. Which is what happened when Alec and Fiore teamed up to vote her out in episode 6. Had Ellie instead told Gabby to vote out Fiore instead of Ashley, this keeps Ellie as the swing vote between Ashley and Alec. Ellie could justify this move by claiming that it eliminates the animosity on the team, given that the core conflicts were between Fiore and Lil. This could help paint Ellie in a good light and still cause her other 2 teammates to target each other rather than her. Now, you could make the argument that making this move might cause team harmony to decrease considering that Alec openly voiced his lack of opinion regarding Fiore's deception. However, I don't necessarily think that this scenario is worse than what happened in canon, which was Ellie getting voted out, sent to the other team, having the majority of her new teammates vote against her, and losing her closest ally in the following episode. And since Ellie is in the middle of the lingering conflict on her original team, I don't think making this move puts her in any additional danger. If anything, this might help her game. If Alec wins immunity in episode 6 and teams up with Ellie to send Ashley to the other team, and assuming that the teal team still loses the episode 7 challenge, then Dan probably leads the charge to take out Ashley since she's the newcomer on the team, just like he did to Ellie in canon. And since Gabby has no social attachment to Ashley, she won't use her totem to save Ashley, allowing her to save it. And if the episode 8 elimination ceremony played out the same way and Gabby gets the majority of the votes, she can then use her immunity totem to save herself and take out Tom. Therefore, Ellie taking out Fiore earlier could possibly allow her to work with Gabby for a longer period of time, which would be good for their relationship. I will say that compared to the first 2 moves in this list, Ellie's move is probably not that bad. But considering the outcome she could have had and the fact that she was only saved because of the twist in episode 6, I still wouldn't consider it to be the ideal move for the situation that she was in. It's not an easy situation to be in, but it's the situation that Ellie chose after she sided with Alec and Fiore to vote out Nick in episode 4. And speaking of Nick's elimination, our next move directly deals with that event. The fourth move on this list probably isn't thought about very much, but I think it's worth mentioning in this list. This move was Alec and Fiore's decision to vote out Nick over Lil and Ashley in episode 4 of season 1. As a refresher for this episode, Fiore burned Ashley's hat and Nick's jacket, and subsequently blamed it on Lil. This caused a conflict between Nick and Lil, even though Lil insisted that Fiore was lying. So, when the purple team lost the challenge, Nick targeted Lil, while Ashley joined Lil in voting out Fiore for her deception, which allowed Alec, Fiore, and Ellie to band together to take out Nick by a vote of 3-2-1. The reason why this move is on this list is because I feel like it made the game a bit more precarious for Alec and Fiore. By getting rid of Nick, it allowed Lil and Ashley to continue working together, which led to them exposing Fiore's deception and targeting Fiore in the following episode. And the only thing stopping Lil and Ashley from succeeding was Ellie's hesitation to flip, which is a bit of a close call. From what the episode showed, due to Lil and Ashley still being in the game, Ellie genuinely considered flipping to take out Fiore, knowing that she would be in the majority if she flipped. However, if Alec and Fiore voted out Ashley instead of Nick in episode 4, this leaves both Nick and Lil in the game heading into episode 5, where they likely continue their conflict. With this conflict in place, it prevents Ellie from flipping on Alec and Fiore to create a new majority. This is because Ellie would have to get Nick and Lil to work together in order to form a new majority, which wouldn't happen due to Nick's stubbornness. Ultimately, voting out Ashley before Nick would have given Alec and Fiore a bit more security to ensure that they couldn't be blindsided in the pre-merge. However, unlike the previous 3 moves on this list, I wouldn't say that the move to take out Nick before Ashley was a mistake. After all, Alec and Fiore didn't suffer any significant consequences by keeping Ashley over Nick. The only concerning point for them was that they had to hope that Ellie would stay loyal to them in episode 5, which she did. But of course, this isn't a list of moves that were complete mistakes. This is just the list of moves that weren't ideal given the circumstances, which allows this move to be put into this video. But for the final move of the video, it could be seen as a mistake for some and not a mistake for others. Let's check it out. The fifth and final move on this list is something that I didn't originally consider for this list, but I felt like it deserved to make it. This move is the short-lived Boys Alliance voting for Gabby in episode 3 of season 1. As a refresher for the episode, Dan tried to capitalize on his team's gender ratio by forming a boys alliance with Tom, Jake, and Drew. Although Dan wanted to target Miriam or Gret, Tom and Drew wanted to target Gabby for her erratic behavior. The alliance ended up settling on Gabby, but because of Gret's late manipulation, Tom flipped to take out Drew instead, sending him home in 13th place. The reason why this move is on this list is because I don't see how voting out Gabby truly benefited anyone in the alliance. For Dan, he prioritized team strength. And based on that episode's challenge, Gabby conquered her fear, while Miriam didn't. And additionally, Dan and Gabby had some pretty good interactions throughout the episode. So by that standard, it doesn't benefit Dan to send Gabby home when she's a good competitor and is generally nice to him. For Drew, he and Gabby had a pretty good interaction earlier on the episode, centered around how Drew recycles his writing papers. And because of this, when I first watched this episode last year, I was caught off guard by Drew wanting to vote out Gabby. It just didn't make sense to me based on their existing interactions. And for Jake and Tom, even though they eventually had good interactions with Miriam, their interactions with her up to this point weren't very positive. This stems from Miriam sternly responding to Jake when he offered to carry her bags, Miriam telling off Jake when he checked on her, and Miriam claiming that Tom was begging for attention with his outfit. So taking all of this into consideration, and with the added caveat of Gabby conquering her fear in episode 3's challenge while Miriam didn't, it just seems like it would have been a much better move at the time for the Boys Alliance to take out Miriam over Gabby. Of course, it doesn't matter that much since Drew ended up being voted out anyways, but at least it would have prevented Dan from losing Gabby's trust. And at the end of the day, even if the move the boys made wasn't ideal, it still contributed to the story of the season being pretty good. And that's what I want to make clear. Just because a move isn't ideal, it doesn't mean that it's bad writing. A camper making a non-ideal move can absolutely be great writing if the motivations are made clear and the camper understands that their move isn't ideal. And that's the balance that needs to be found when writing a show like Disventure Camp. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts on these moves? Do you disagree? What moves in Disventure Camp do you think weren't ideal for the campers that made them? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Don't anger someone who's paddling a canoe, because all it takes is one wrong word for you to get smacked in the head by an oar. Thank you, and farewell.